There is a silent psychological experience that almost every human being encounters at some point in life. You walk into a room and you feel it. Someone looks at you with cold eyes. Someone avoids you. Someone criticizes you more harshly than necessary. And you ask yourself, what did I do? You replay your words, your tone, your behavior. You search for mistakes. And yet, sometimes the truth is unsettlingly simple. You did nothing wrong. They dislike you not because of your actions, but because of what you represent. This phenomenon, being disliked for seemingly no reason, is deeply rooted in human psychology, insecurity, and unconscious comparison. It is not random. It is not mystical. It is psychological. Human beings are social creatures driven by status, belonging, and self-image. From early childhood, our brains develop mechanisms to evaluate where we stand in a social hierarchy. Neuroscience shows that the same brain regions that process physical pain are activated when we experience social rejection. This tells us something powerful. Social threat feels like survival threat. When someone perceives you as a threat, whether to their status, identity, or self-worth, their nervous system reacts defensively, often without their conscious awareness. Over time, these reactions harden into resentment, avoidance, or even hostility. Leo Tolstoy once wrote in his reflections on human morality and ego that people often resent those who reflect their own inadequacies. He understood something that modern psychology now confirms. We do not merely react to people, we react to what they awaken inside us. Sometimes your presence forces someone to confront parts of themselves they would rather ignore, and that confrontation is uncomfortable. The first reason people may hate you for no reason is that you mirror their insecurities. Psychologically, this is known as projection. Projection occurs when individuals attribute their unwanted feelings, flaws, or fears to someone else. If a person feels intellectually insecure and you are articulate, they may perceive you as arrogant even if you are humble. If they feel physically insecure and you appear confident in your body, they may label you as attention-seeking. It is not about you. It is about the gap they feel within themselves. Observe the behavior patterns that accompany this projection. The insecure individual may subtly undermine your achievements. They may dismiss your success as luck. Their body language often becomes tense around you, crossed arms, tightened jaw, limited eye contact. Their compliments, if they give any, are backhanded. Your lucky things always work out for you. Notice the word lucky. It minimizes effort. It reduces your competence. That linguistic pattern reveals something deeper. They are protecting their own fragile self-concept. When a person constantly criticizes you without concrete evidence, psychologically it signals internal comparison. Social comparison theory explains that people evaluate their worth by comparing themselves to others. If they perceive you as ahead, they experience a threat to their ego. Instead of self-improvement, some choose ego defense. Hate becomes a shield. Dislike becomes a psychological strategy to restore internal balance. By devaluing you, they temporarily elevate themselves. Now consider the opposite. When a person does not engage in comparison, when they celebrate your growth genuinely, what does that reveal? It reveals internal security. It reveals self-acceptance. Secure individuals do not feel diminished by your light because they are not measuring themselves against it. Their nervous system does not interpret your success as danger. Instead, they experience inspiration. The absence of hostility often signals emotional maturity. The second reason people may hate you is that you disrupt their identity. Every human being builds a narrative about who they are. I am the smartest one in this group. I am the most attractive. I am the most moral. These identities create psychological stability, but when someone enters the environment and unintentionally challenges that narrative, cognitive dissonance occurs. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort experienced when reality contradicts self-belief. Imagine a workplace where someone has always been considered the most competent. Then you arrive with new ideas, innovative solutions, and confidence. You may not compete aggressively. You may simply exist. Yet your existence challenges their story. Their brain must now reconcile two ideas. I am the most competent, and there is someone equally or more competent. That conflict creates anxiety. And for some, the easiest way to reduce anxiety is to reject or resent the challenger. Behaviorally, this manifests as subtle exclusion. They may leave you out of meetings, they may withhold information, they may speak over you in group discussions. Their tone might become dismissive. Observe micro-expressions, eye rolls, sighs, quick interruptions. These behaviors reveal fear of replacement, fear of irrelevance. When a person feels secure in their identity, they do not need to silence others. When they feel threatened, they attempt to control the environment. If someone avoids eye contact and becomes unusually quiet around you, this may indicate internal conflict. Silence is not always hatred. Sometimes it is insecurity. But when silence is paired with passive-aggressive actions, it suggests suppressed resentment. The psychological root remains the same: perceived identity threat. Tolstoy's philosophy repeatedly touched on the illusion of ego-based identity. He believed much of human suffering comes from attachment to status and self-image. When your presence exposes the fragility of someone's constructed identity, they may not attack their own illusion. They may attack you instead. The third reason people hate you is perhaps the most uncomfortable. You remind them of who they could have been. This is existential resentment. When someone sees you pursuing your goals, expressing authenticity, or living with courage, it can awaken regret in them. Regret is psychologically painful because it highlights missed opportunities. Rather than confronting their own inaction, some redirect the discomfort outward. Notice how this manifests socially. When you start improving your health, someone who abandoned their fitness goals might mock your discipline. When you pursue education, someone who dropped out might call you too serious. When you set boundaries, someone who cannot say no might accuse you of being selfish. Their reaction reveals not your flaw, but their unresolved grief over unrealized potential. Psychologically, envy plays a role here. Envy is often misunderstood. It is not simply wanting what someone else has. It is the painful awareness that you desire something you believe you lack. Envy combined with low self-esteem can transform into hostility. The brain interprets your progress as a reminder of their stagnation. The emotional response becomes defensive aggression. But consider again the absence of such behavior. When a person feels inspired rather than threatened, it indicates psychological growth. Inspiration requires humility. It requires acknowledging, "You have something I admire." That acknowledgement demands self-reflection. Many avoid it because it threatens comfort. In real life, these dynamics unfold quietly. In families, siblings may resent the one who receives praise. In friendships, growth can create distance. When one friend begins therapy, sets boundaries, and evolves emotionally, the other may feel abandoned. They might accuse you of changing. From a psychological perspective, change disrupts relational equilibrium. If a relationship was built on shared insecurity or mutual complaining, your growth destabilizes the bond. The other person must either grow alongside you or resent you. Resentment is often easier. Emotionally, individuals who hate for no reason experience internal turbulence. Their nervous system is activated by comparison. Their self-concept feels fragile. Their subconscious fears include being overlooked, being inadequate, being replaced. They may not articulate these fears consciously. Instead, they rationalize their hostility. They might say, "I just don't like their vibe." Vague reasoning often masks unconscious processes. Psychologists analyze these patterns through observation of behavioral inconsistencies. For example, if someone reacts disproportionately to minor actions, strong anger over small mistakes, it signals emotional displacement. Displacement occurs when a person redirects feelings from their true source to a safer target. You become the safer target. Their anger may originate from unrelated frustrations, career dissatisfaction, relationship problems, unresolved trauma, but your presence becomes the trigger. Therapists also examine linguistic patterns. Repeated use of minimizing language, sarcasm, or absolute statements such as, "you always think you're right," indicates cognitive distortions. These distortions reveal black and white thinking, often rooted in insecurity. Emotional triggers are identified through physiological cues: increased heart rate, flushed face, rapid speech. The body often reacts before the mind constructs justification. The side effects of being hated without clear reason can be severe for the target. Humans are wired for belonging. When we sense rejection, we question ourselves. Chronic exposure to unjustified hostility can erode self-esteem. You may become hypervigilant, constantly scanning for signs of disapproval. This hyper-awareness can lead to anxiety. You might shrink your personality to avoid triggering others. Over time, this suppression damages authenticity. If you internalize their projection, you may develop imposter syndrome. You begin to doubt your competence despite evidence of success. Your productivity decreases because mental energy is consumed by self-questioning. Relationships suffer because you become guarded. Trust diminishes. The psychological burden of unexplained hostility can even contribute to depressive symptoms, especially if the environment is unavoidable, such as a workplace or family setting. On the other hand, those who harbor unjustified hatred also experience consequences. Chronic envy correlates with lower life satisfaction. Persistent comparison activates stress responses, increasing cortisol levels. Over time, this contributes to emotional exhaustion. Resentment narrows cognitive flexibility, making growth less likely. Hatred becomes a psychological prison. Tolstoy emphasized self-examination as the path to moral clarity. Modern psychology echoes this principle. When individuals engage in introspection, they can identify projection and envy. Without introspection, these emotions operate unconsciously, guiding behavior in destructive ways. So how should one respond when faced with such hatred? First, differentiate between constructive criticism and projection. Constructive criticism is specific and actionable. Projection is vague and emotionally charged. Second, maintain internal boundaries. Recognize that someone's hostility may reflect their internal struggle, not your worth. Third, avoid retaliatory comparison. Meeting insecurity with arrogance perpetuates the cycle. It is also important to reflect honestly. Sometimes what feels like hatred may stem from subtle behaviors you are unaware of. Psychologists encourage feedback from neutral parties to ensure self-awareness. Growth requires humility, but humility does not mean accepting unjust blame. Observe your own body language when confronted with hostility. Do you shrink? Do you over-explain? These reactions reveal your attachment to approval. Emotional resilience develops when your self-concept is internally grounded rather than externally validated. When you are secure, others' projections lose power. The deeper philosophical insight here is that hatred without cause is rarely without reason. The reason simply lies within the hater, not the hated. Human beings are mirrors to one another. Every interaction reveals something internal. If someone despises your confidence, it may reveal their fear of inadequacy. If someone mocks your ambition, it may reveal their regret. If someone isolates you, it may reveal their fear of losing relevance. Understanding this does not eliminate pain, but it reframes it. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" you begin to ask, "What might this situation reveal about human psychology?" That shift restores power. It transforms confusion into awareness. In closing, remember that being disliked without clear reason is not evidence of your flaw. It is evidence of human complexity. Insecurity, identity threat, and existential regret drive much of social hostility. Tolstoy's reflections on ego and morality remind us that the battle is rarely external. It is internal. The person who hates you may be fighting themselves. And the greatest strength you can cultivate is not universal approval, but internal stability. When you develop self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and compassion without sacrificing boundaries, you step outside the cycle of projection and resentment. You understand that your role is not to shrink so others feel comfortable, nor is it to inflate yourself to provoke admiration. Your role is to live authentically. And when you do, some will misunderstand you, some will resent you, some will dislike you without reason. But those reactions are not verdicts on your worth. They are reflections of their internal world. The more you understand this, the freer you become.